Okay, thank you guys for joining tonight. This will be my presentation. I have three people on here. Let me see. How do you like screen share? More screen, this one. Okay, so this will be my presentation for tonight. Let me see. Okay, and so we're gonna start off. So this is my presentation. It's about gun control. So the silent wounds, gun violence, and the mental health crisis in American schools by Gabriel Hernandez. Visualize yourself sitting in a school, attempting to concentrate on a math exam with your mind wandering about whether fire drills is not a drill but an event. For more than 100,000 American students, this is not a novel idea, but fact. Education Week in 2023 suggests that during 2018 and 2019 school year alone, more than 100,000 students went to school where there was a shooting or a potential lockdown. Americans' gun violence has spawned a mental health epidemic in schools, which persists to a very day largely unaddressed today. I will show how this violence affects the mental health with education of students, compares ourselves to other nations, and discuss policy actions we can take to safeguard our children. We will look at the gun violence epidemic, observe how it impacts students' health and learning, compare with the US and other countries, and lastly, offer genuine evidence-based recommendations that can help our schools become a healthier and safer place. The problem towards this. The impact of gun violence in the US. Gun violence has become a routine and highly menacing a future of American school life. Over 1,400 schools have been site of a school shooting since the 1990s. The National Center for Education in 2022 reported alone, in just the last decade, there was a mid-boggling 31% raise in the number of students killed. That means every week, somewhere in America, a child walks into a building and never leaves because of a bullet. These tragedies are one-time flukes or isolated occurrences, they're rapidly becoming the new normal in school protocols. But let's be clear on one thing. The destruction doesn't stop when the news dies down. These aren't just sad news headlines. They're psychological tremendous for whole school communities. As of 2023, based on American Psychological Association, students who suffer from indirect exposure of school gun violence are extremely likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety, and chronic depression. These do not disappear when police tape is taken down or when school begins again the next day. The precise disrupting sleep patterns, relationships, and a child ever feel safe within a classroom. Especially with this trauma, to not have the endured with bullets, Dr. Maya Roslin and colleagues explains of a Journal of Human Resources in 2020 how just the alarm sound of a lockdown, a news feed from down the shooting with a nearby school, or repeated active shooter drills are enough to set the brain into trauma mode. Students may exhibit the very same biochemical stress responses, such as elevated and cryostol and disassociation, that they might otherwise view in survivors of a natural disaster or refugees of war. That means potentially tens of millions of students nationwide may be silently walking around with trauma and never witnessed a school shooting ever. In a society where lockdown drills are as normal as fire drills, we have to ask ourselves, what are we teaching children to do? Read and write or survive? And then this one will be the cause of effects on students, how gun violence affects learning and mental health. The root cause of all of this short circuits within a school settings is fear. This fear is not unreasonable, which directly caused by the increased presence of gun violence. And in around schools, lockdowns, exercises, and constant amount of shootings, conditioning students to see what not as sanctuary for learning, but also potential battleground. The absence of mental health treatments, improper storage of weapons, racial difference in exposure to violence, and the gaps of firearms law are central factors. In Harvard 2023, according to the Ordway, students in schools have experienced shootings face real, measurable academic losses, lower scores on standardized tests, increased absences, and reduced college enrollment. These are not caused by laziness or lack of discipline. These are immediate consequences of a trauma brain that can't focus in the environment and feeling unsafe. Leo Brand and other 2020 documents Blacks and Latinx teens affected by the school and community gun violence, particularly in poor areas with high rates of crime. They are more likely to experience dual forms of destructural education disadvantages and direct trauma exposure. This means that they are the same kids in our system that has been rising up as they are, instead twice traumatized, poverty, and once more by to endanger. This has nothing to do with mental health. It has it has to do with social injustice making educational worse than existed for centuries before the first bullet ever left a gun. Furthermore, the Harvard School of Public Health in 2023 concluded that the young people who are regularly exposed to violence in schools and communities are more likely to employ coping mechanisms such as drug use, violent aggressions, or emotional damage. These are intellectual frayed youth. These are part of the system that has failed and provide them with safety and measures. The vigilance of the phage of is a killer. My bad. It's a killer to promise if we're instructing children to survive techniques before they're even learned their ABCs. We're positioning ourselves for a fight not to win. Perspective 3, the US versus the world. Here's a sobering fact. School shootings are an American epidemic and nearly which no among industrialized centuries or countries. In 2022, one study as in journal discovered that the United States has 11 times more child and teen gun-related deaths than other wealthy countries. Countries such as Japan, England, and Australia has reported virtually zero school shootings each year. It is not that their youth is less outraged. It is governments that they should be taking political choice to value safety, and these nations approach gun violence as a public health issue. Rather than a political soundbite, they instituted robust gun controls, strengthening licensings, waiting times, and safe storage by legislation on high-powered for guns for civilians. And they do not wait for tragedy to occur, they fled due to them. The Rand Corporation in 2023 added fuel to the fire with facts. Those states that have passed universal background checks and safe storage gun laws experience a startling reduction in gun violence deaths and a stunning decline in trauma-related mental health conditions among youth. So this is not about culture, it's about political will. If other nations have demonstrated that they can prevent school shootings almost entirely, the question is, why can't we? The answer is that we cannot. It is that we have not. However, we still can if we choose to value our children's lives over re rechanneling to change. The solution, next one. The solution, real solutions in policy and prevention. When we can no longer settle for thoughts and prayers, there are comforting ways that we will not stop these bullets. What we need today is evidence-based and solutions focused on action to ensure our students and safe before this occurs again. We need to start when the pain is being felt the worst. Mental Health, the National Association of School Psychology in 2022 suggests schools implement multi-tiered systems of support. Across all these schools, which is an entire system offering trauma-informed counseling, currently risking identifications of students and tired supporting the need of the system. Enable schools to address mental health before they become out of control crisis and endow students with what they're required to heal and flourish. Second, we must prevent guns from falling into the wrong hands. Beginning at home, Carter Zimmerman and Sokol in Article 2021 reported more than 75% of school shooters employed guns that they had taken of sources from their own household or other relatives from home. That is not just horrifying, but it is also avoidable. Universal safe storage legislation would force gun owners to lock up their guns in the house, particularly where kids live. That one step radically cut off the access and save lives. Third, we need to empower communities, parents, educators, and students can be taught gun safety and they can learn warning signs, interview early, and de-escalate threats before they become violent. Finally, we must seal a fatal loopholes in our gun laws. The Johns Hopkins Center of Gun Violence Solutions in 2023 calls for imposition of universal background checks on all sales, internet, and private sales. So far, the loopholes permit guns to pass from hand without getting through any screening. Let's be absolutely clear here. This is not about politics, it's about kids. We have the research, we have the sources, and we have public opinions on our side. What we need now is courage to act now. My conclusion. Now, let me leave you with this. We don't send children to practice making it through school shootings. We send them to learn, broaden their minds, and prepare for a life possibility and promise. But how can a child focus when he's looking at the nearest way out? How can teenagers aspire to college when he's haunted by a sound of a slamming locker? The future, the one we promise our children, is being stolen. Each time we let gun violence become a reality unchecked, we're betraying our children and we're not putting their bodies at risk. We're traumatizing their minds, robbing them of their own sense of security, and damaging their ability to learn and to flourish. And then here is gun violence is not only a policy concern or a political war zone, it is a public health crisis and at a cost of mental health and academic achievement. Call action. We must act now, symbolically empty gestures, but with real reality-based solutions. We must increase mental health treatments for schools. We ensure safe storage laws are meaning do not fall into hands of our kids, and we must plug loopholes that enable dangerous individuals to skirt background checks. This is not a partition matter. It is not a liberal or nor conservative. It's life or death. Keeping our children safe is the most fundamental shared value we have because ultimately we are arguing about what isn't a policy. It's a peace of mind, it's a childhood, it's a future where lockdown drills are relic of the past. As every gun town of gun safety reported in 2024, gun violence is preventable. We just need to encourage act. I implore you to then, do we have the courage because our children can't wait longer? And then these are my sources that I have, and that will be it for today. Thank you guys. Okay, wait, how do I end this?